cases of, murders in the country. According to police reports, there are 339 cases of reported murders across the country this year alone. But before that, let's have a look at a story regarding the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. Now, while Kenya joins other countries in marking of the beginning of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, it has been reported that 4,000 cases of different forms of gender-based violence are reported in hospitals every month. Now, stakeholders have to this end been called upon, and especially Mondi tells us more.
Tuweze kuhamasisha kina mama, ndugu zetu, vijana wetu.
16 days of activism officially begins today, with Kenya joining other parts of the world to commemorate the campaign.
I am surprised we stand here to talk, Madam PS, about 97 children. They are not 97. Those are the ones who are reported. I am sure there are more.
Leading the celebrations, Gender PS Anne Wangombe indicated that more than 4,000 cases of gender-based violence are reported in hospitals every month.
Nationally, women experience physical violence more than men, and women between 45 to 49 years of age experience the most physical violence. Married women or in a relationship experience the highest rate of physical violence compared to men.
Additionally, apart from cases of femicide, which in the past days have been on the rise, FGM, early pregnancy, rape, among other cases, have been a setback to the efforts in defending gender-based rights.
Wanapigwa, wanateswa, na they are the same people ambao inafaa na wagaramie familia, wa take care of the family. So mimi kama mwanamke na feel so painful kwamba wanawake wenzangu wanadhulumiwa.
HIV infections have also been said to be among the challenges in the fight against gender-based violence.
Is that a man would have never come who really loves you to tell you now you can have sex just the first day. We would say we want to know you better, and I want to know you better. But today our children are in a different generation. So parents, we cannot rebuke them, but we can speak to them.
Parents have to this end been called upon to be amicable when resolving domestic disputes which affect children in those families.
People around your homes are looking down upon you because they already know it was chaotic and so much noise even in the middle of the night. So they already know there's no respect, there's no dignity, and people even in school can just mock you. It was just chaotic, so you try to be enclosed, you don't want to open up as well. So yeah, from a very young age, from 6 to when I left completely is now when I joined campus. These other days I used to just go to my grandma's place, live there, then my father comes for me with beatings, come back. It's like he wanted a place he can control each and everyone at his own place.
A call has also been made to stakeholders to come together in the next 16 days and ensure that those found guilty face the full force of the law.
The legislative arm, judiciary, the executive, civil society organizations, the private sector, youth and community leaders to step forward and take decisive actions. To the government, prioritize funding GBV response.
Robbie Omondi, K24.
Well, thank you very much, Robbie Omondi, for that particular story. Now, at that particular moment in time, I just want us to have a look at what is making headlines in the local dailies now. And at Berg, we begin with the Daily Nation because it has one very, very big and interesting story. And they say Ruto man sued over classified spying software. Like you can see on the screen, Ruto man sued over classified spying software. Now, the 4 men whose pictures are appearing there is Treasury PS, that is Chris Kipto, Head of Public Service, that is Felix Koskei, Eric Neno, the President's speechwriter, and one very interesting name because we've had this name before, Jayesh Saini, Health Sector Entrepreneur. We saw the Kisii Senator, that is Honorable Richard Onyonka, mentioning Jayesh Saini many times in regards to their Adani deals, and they said Saini alleged that Saini was behind those particular deals. Now, they say a high-stakes commercial litigation has exposed President William Ruto's alleged plan to acquire an online propaganda machine to counter hostility against his administration and boost his re-election campaign. The fallout between the president's close aides and the American owners of the 120 million software has revealed the scheme to deploy confidential software with the capacity to spy on targets. Now, that is a story that you can find on page 6 and 7 of the Daily Nation. And it's very interesting because they say this propaganda machine was supposed its main aim was to counter those who are against, or the dissenting voices against President William Ruto's administration, especially online. We've seen cases where the president and his administration have been put to task by Kenyans on social media, rather than social media, and that, to be more specific, is the X platform. Now remember, one interesting fact is that even the Gen Z-led demonstrations, everything began on social media, and especially on X, and it was a revolution that people say began on social media, and one would want to believe or argue that that is one of the main reasons as to why the claim here on this particular story of the president trying to acquire a propaganda machine to counter the youth, the dissenting voices comes from. Now, at the center of this particular litigation is a lady by the name Miss Washuka. And they say the suit was filed yesterday at the Milimani High Court by Mary Washuka Minor, a dual Kenyan and Canadian citizen who owns a company registered in Canada. Now, in court papers, Ms. Washuka describes herself as an international data scientist and software engineer with quote-unquote disruptive and innovative technology expertise. Now, the legal dispute began in New York, the United States of America, where Ms. Washuka had to, on May 13th, 2024, pay $950,000 US, that is loosely translated to 123 million shillings, as compensation for breach of contract to a firm she had subcontracted for the collapsed Kenyan project. Now, Mr. Washuka is said to have sued senior government officials like you can see on your screen, the four of them, for 292 million Kenya shillings in compensation and an order restraining the defendants or their agents from sending her and her mother menacing death threats by phone, email, or any other means over the contract or the claim. A very, very interesting story. They say Kanchori Mutali and company advocates who just represent Ms. Washuka say the case involves the defendant's fraudulent misinterpretation of the breach of contract, which caused the plaintiff a significant loss of 172 million Kenya shillings. Like I said, you can read that story on page 6 and 4 of the Daily Nation. Again, on page 4 of the Daily Nation, and it's a story that has been highlighted on the front page on the bottom side of the newspaper, they say Gachagua security withdrawn. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua has revealed that the state has now completely withdrawn his security, accusing him of sponsoring dissent against President William Ruto's government. Now, that is a story that you can read on page 4. And they say his private secretary says trouble began after Ruto was booed at, in a Catholic church in Embu 2 weekends ago. Remember, during that particular event, an event that was attended by President William Ruto, his deputy, Professor Kithure Kindiki, former President Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, and ousted DP Rigathi Gachagua, the president was booed by a section of the congregation in that particular event, and that raised eyebrows even when the president was departing from the venue of that particular event, was being booed by sections of residents amid cheers for former President Uhuru Kenyatta and ousted Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua. Now, again, remember, on Saturday, this past weekend, residents of Murang'a did decline to listen to a speech, the speech of President William Ruto and his deputy, Professor Kithure Kindiki, during a burial in that particular county. And ousted DP Rigathi Gachagua on Sunday during a church service, to be specific, at Kangari Aipka Church in Muranga, did say that whatever is being felt and whatever President William Ruto is feeling right now from the Mount Kenya region, the repercussions or ramifications of kuguza mulima. And he says, niliwambia wasiguze mulima lakini waliguza. Whatever they are feeling and whatever the ground is saying at the moment are the effects, the ripple effects of mulima kuguzo. Now, its security, remember, parts of its security had been reinstated, but eventually, like he now says or claims, security has been fully withdrawn. That is a story that you can read on page 4. Now shifting to page 5 of the Daily Nation again, a very other interesting story. And they say greedy MPs pocket bodyguards and drivers' allowances. Now just next to that particular story on Gachagua security being withdrawn, next to it is that story on the front page, and they say this honorable greedy MPs pocket bodyguards and drivers' allowances. Now, this is a concern raised by Speaker Moses Masika Wetangula, who is the chairperson of the Parliamentary Service Commission, and he says bodyguards and drivers of these particular members of parliament raised concerns that their bosses are not giving them their due deals. Now, that is, or rather, that includes, allowances, and the Speaker, Moses Wetangula, was blasting MPs, saying you cannot be earning over $1 million shillings in salaries and allowances and still yet again withhold or take allowances meant for your employees or your aides, and that is a story that is on page 5. Now, it's a very interesting story on page 2 and 3, and they say woman married to 2 men. And I repeat, woman married to 2 men fights their widows over 100 million estates. Now, Mwende, they say, the lady goes by the name Mary Mwende. They say Mwende says that she had a child with Kinyua, whom she was married to until his death in 2021, and to Wanyoike, who died in 2023. Now, the 2 gentlemen are Andrew Wanyoike Muthe, aged 54, and Geoffrey Kinyua Mwangi, aged 35, who died 2 years apart. But they are now united, controversially united, I should say, by Mary Mwende, who claims that she should benefit from the estates of the 2 fallen gentlemen. Now, shifting gears to the Standard, they say life about to get worse for farmers, and they say new laws that MPs are considering, regulations that will make farming a tough venture. One will need a license to sell an animal that must be registered. They say new authorities to run farming are to be set up, as produce handlers will need to go back to school. Now, they say 19 is the number of bills on agriculture that could make the lives of farmers more difficult as they seek to regulate the sector. Now, under the bill, horses, donkeys, mules, and ducks are classified as livestock and must be labeled. Now, in terms of registration, each label will detail the breed, date of birth, and information deemed necessary. In terms of the target audience, is that it is not clear whether the law being written targets corporate bodies or everyone. Now, on the scope, they say the bills target all aspects of farming, from seeds and water to fertilizers and the produce. That is a story that you can get more details on page 6 of the Standard this particular morning. Now, a very other interesting story is they say on page 5, MPs seek Adani alternative after deal cancellation. That is a story on page 5, and like we had in the story that we did run this particular morning, Majority Leader Kimani Ichung'wah was speaking yesterday during a debate by the National Assembly on President William Ruto's second State of the Nation address, which he delivered on Thursday last week, that those who are against the Adani deals must now come out and give alternatives And in fact, here in this story, they have quoted Ishunga, and they say Ishunga says those who are against projects should offer better ideas. Junet Mohammed, the leader of the minority side, says PPP is the best way to implement capital-intensive projects. Remember, this comes after President William Ruto in his State of the Nation address did cancel the Adani JKL lease deal, 30-year lease deal, and they already signed Adani Ketraco deal that was worth 96 billion Kenya shillings. That is a story that you can get on page 5 of the Standard. I beg your pardon. It had been written on the front page that the story on farmers and the life of farmers about to get to us was on page 6, but that is not the case. The story is on page 4. Now, but going back to page 6 is a story on Busia Senator Okia Okoiti Omtata, and they say, Omtata, why am keen on 2027? Remember, Busia Senator Okia Omtata did hint at running for the presidency or for the House on the Hill in 2027, and of course he gazetted a 10-member exploratory committee to assess his chances of running for president. Now, Omtata says the country is at a critical juncture and the call to serve has never been more urgent. He says the road ahead requires thoughtful preparation, and this exploratory phase is a crucial step in ensuring that our vision for the future aligns with the hopes and aspirations of Kenyans. Just below that is a story on Governor's rally, rally support for Shah, urging patients to register amid challenges. Now, next to that is a story on page 7, and they say court finds Divani has a case to answer in 1.5 billion jet fuel scam. Remember, Divani was extradited back to the country to face charges on that, the Triton case, and they say a court has found businessman Yanesh Devani and former finance manager of Triton Petroleum Company Limited Mahindra Pathak have a case to answer in connection with the 2008 1.5 billion Kipevu jet fuel scam. That is a story that you can get on page 7. Just to shift gears, I know I'm a sports person, but on the back page of the Standard, they say high stakes as Bayern host PSG. Remember, the UEFA Champions League resumes tonight with various teams trying to ensure that they post good results. Those teams include Arsenal, who, by the way, have never won a Champions League trophy. Now, moving to the Star, and they say battle for Central. Is Kindiki ready for the turbulent ride? It remains to be seen whether he can rally support over disgruntled constituency. Now, that is a story that you can get on the front page of the Star. And there's a new political matrix, because ever since Rigathi Gachagua was ousted as the second in command in the country, Professor Kithure Kindiki was appointed and sworn in as the deputy president, and of course installed as the deputy party leader of the ruling party, that is the United Democratic Alliance. But now the situation looks like it's a bit tense, for lack of a better term, in terms of support for President William Ruto in the vast Mount Kenya region. And yesterday, Embakasi North Member of Parliament James Gakuya was here, and he said the mountain has shifted. President William Ruto will not get any votes or support in Mount Kenya region in his bid for re-election in 2027. And in fact, Honorable Gakuya said that whether Uhuru Kenyatta will be in the picture or not, that is Honorable former President Uhuru Kenyatta will be in the picture or not in 2027, Gachagua alone will take away Mount Kenya from President William Ruto. That is a story that you can get on the front page of the Star. Now, finally, before we wrap up the newspaper review, we look at the People Daily. And the People Daily, the front page of the People Daily says, fresh law to allow sale of body parts. Very, very interesting and serious concern there. And they say this is a law that has been, that seeks to allow the sale of body parts. And that is a story that you can get on the People Daily this particular morning. And well, before I give you details on that, there's another story just below it, and they say global security. President William Ruto, Commander of the Africa Command, General Michael Langley, and the U.S. Embassy Deputy Chief of Mission, that is Mark Dillard, at State House, Nairobi. Yesterday, Ruto said Kenya and the U.S. have an excellent peace and security partnership in the East African region. Now, remember, Mark Dillard took charge of the Kenyan U.S. Embassy here in the country following the resignation of Meg Whitman as the U.S. ambassador to Kenya. Now, back to the story on the front page that I was talking about, and that is a story that you can get on page 4 of the People Daily. And they say the bill proposes body pass donations. Bill, however, proposes to bar persons from giving consent for the harvesting of another person's organs. Now, they say, should the bill be passed by the House, spouses, parents, and the eldest child of an adult or any person named as next of kin would have the powers to give consent to hospitals. In 2021, only 160 kidney transplants were performed against 5,700 patients on hemodialysis, resulting in a transplant conversion rate of 2.8% compared to a global average. You can get more on that on page 4 of the People Daily. That is a newspaper that you can access freely on the website. You can get to read all the details on the People Daily through epaper.peopledaily.digital, just to get an understanding and a look at the stories making headlines in the country, according to the People Daily. Now, that, of course, wraps our newspaper review this particular morning. Here on Udo, we will be taking a brief breather before we now come back and have a conversation surrounding matters gender-based violence. You can also refer to it as sexual and gender-based violence. Remember, yesterday, like I said, was the beginning of the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence across the country, and we saw various leaders, we saw various stakeholders, gender activists, key players in the country trying to raising concerns regarding the issues surrounding gender-based violence and what are the lapses in trying to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. Remember, questions are being raised whether there is a lapse in the judicial system in trying to ensure that the perpetrators are brought to book. And like I said, according to DIG Lagat, in the 3 months preceding November, that is August, September, and October, 97 cases of femicide were reported here in the country. And up to now, up to around October 25th, 2024, that is last month, the reports that the police or the authorities here in the country had is that 339 cases or rather murder cases had been reported here in the country. We'll be looking at that and what next, what needs to be done, what are the grey areas, who is probably to blame in all this matters that we are witnessing here in the country. That will be immediately after this short break. Don't go away.
The biggest reggae and rhythm show ever on Kenyan television.